She's an American woman who on social media posted that she dreamed to travel the world. She left her life in Wisconsin behind and tried to become, get this, an assassin. She was then on the run, the target of an international manhunt for 5 years. This is a story that is so outrageous, it would be a box office bust because it would just be so unbelievable. But all of this is very real, and there is a lot to unpack as her trial just came to an end with a shocking verdict. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. It's rare to find a story as outrageous as the one that we're talking about today. I want you to meet Aimee Betro. This is her mugshot from the West Midlands Police Department in the United Kingdom, and it's from when she was arrested of trying to carry out an assassination plot. Now, how does a lady become an international hitwoman, or in this case, an attempted international hitwoman? I'll get into that in just a moment. We have to go back to the beginning with Aimee, and it all begins in a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Aimee is from the town of West Allis, and it appears up until 2019, she was living a pretty normal life. Her LinkedIn says her most recent job was a house and a pet sitter. She also worked as a graphic designer, and she even lists working as a telephone sales representative for the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team, where she claims she was one of their top reps in the ticket office for the 5 seasons she worked there. She also has a lengthy bio on LinkedIn that frankly reads more like a dating profile, where she talks about her love of music, among other things. Then at the bottom, she says she is interested in relocating to either Southern California or London. And that is where it appears that Aimee begins to enter the life that would eventually have her dubbed the Hitwoman in a Hijab. I will get to the part involving the Muslim veil in just a moment. Around 2018, Betro met the man you see here on a dating app. His name, Mohammad Nazir. And Aimee claims that between 2018 and 2019, she made a couple trips to the UK to spend time with him. Now you notice Nazir in this mugshot, he has a black eye. And that, according to the West Midlands Police Department, is from a physical altercation that he had at a clothing store in Birmingham, England in 2018. Here is Nazir's dad. His name is Mohammad Aslam, and you can see he took a few shots as well in this altercation. Those injuries and these men, they play a very key part in Aimee Betro's story and how she went from living a pretty regular Midwestern life, searching for love on a dating app, to becoming someone who would try to carry out an assassination. Police say that Nazir and his dad were hell-bent on getting revenge on the man who appears to have tuned them up pretty good at that clothing store. So they recruited Aimee Betro to carry out an assassination. And this is how it all went down according to police in the UK. We have to go back to September 7th, 2019. Police say that Betro, who at least her perception was she was dating this guy Nazir who she met on the app, Betro waited outside the house of the man who Nazir wanted dead. And she was dressed in an Islamic veil, that hijab, to disguise her face. When the victim arrived home, that is when Betro walked up to him and pointed a gun in his face. And this is surveillance video that was put out by police. But when Betro pointed the gun in his face, when she went to pull the trigger, the gun jammed. Because of that, some online have dubbed her the worst hitman of all time. Betro, though, she wasn't done. She ran away, but returned about 5 hours later. And police say she fired 3 rounds into the house. And these are pictures of evidence that West Midlands police recovered from the scene. This is a bullet casing. Here's a bullet hole that was left in the window. One bullet inside even hit a mirror. A couple others went up and hit the ceiling. Police say that Nazir and Islam had been in a feud not just with that victim that Betro tried to shoot in the face, but also his dad, and he was inside the house at the time that Betro fired the rounds into the home. Not only did Betro allegedly try to assassinate the man outside, shooting him in the face at point blank range if that gun hadn't jammed, she was also sending text messages to the man's dad who was inside the home, writing, quote, "Stop playing hide and seek. You're lucky it jammed. Who is it? Your family or you? Pick one." Now, after all of this transpired, Betro escaped back to the United States. She flew back to Wisconsin the next day. This is a picture of her at the airport. The BBC wrote that prior to this shooting, Betro had virtually, quote, no criminal footprint, and she was unknown to investigators until she disappeared. Police said she was also, quote, a fairly unexceptional individual. Nazir was also able to get out of the United Kingdom after this attempted hit, and he, according to the BBC, met Betro in the United States, and the two of them went on a bit of a tourist road trip and rented a car going to Seattle, San Francisco, Las Vegas. They even drove to Area 51 in the Nevada desert. Eventually, though, Aimee would become known to law enforcement. She became the main suspect in this case, and she became an international fugitive. But by the time police had found her name and put together that she was involved in this, she had vanished. No one was able to find her for 5 years. Last summer, while she was still at large, her mom, who still lives in Wisconsin, told the Telegraph newspaper, quote, she needs to turn herself in. I would love her to do that because she is going to run out of places to hide. She has nowhere else to go, and now that it's an international manhunt, she's not going to be able to fly anywhere. She also said, quote, if she comes here, I'm not letting her in. I will call the police. I'm afraid somebody's after her and is maybe going to kill her. Now that it's all come out, she's got to stop running. She was on the run until last year when it was discovered that she was living in Armenia in Eastern Europe. It was the Daily Mail that first found her living there in the summer of 2024. The outlet said they found her Instagram, and on that Instagram, she was posting selfies. And so the Daily Mail paired those selfies with sunset photos to trace her to Armenia, and eventually they found her. Now, the authorities also found her and took her into custody. They brought her back to the United Kingdom, and this is her mugshot when she was put under arrest. At her trial, which just took place over the last couple of weeks, Betro said that she actually had nothing to do with that botched hit. She claimed the evidence that prosecutors presented to her was just a total coincidence. One of the key pieces of evidence in this case was a black glove. So when the gun jammed, the victim, who was still in his car, got in and sped away. And when he was doing that, he clipped a part of a Mercedes that Betro drove to the scene. So Betro then drives the Mercedes away. She ditches the vehicle, but then because of the minor little crash there that the car had in the getaway, police were able to say this was the car at the scene. Then inside that car, they find that black glove, and what is in that black glove? Aimee Betro's DNA. Took the jury about 21 hours to convict Betro of conspiracy to murder, possessing a self-loading pistol with intent to cause fear of violence, and illegally importing ammunition. According to the BBC, Betro did not show any emotion as that verdict was read. As for her lover and his dad, who recruited her to try to carry out this revenge killing, they were already found guilty. Nazir received a 32-year jail sentence, and his dad, Islam, received a 10-year sentence. Joining us now to talk more about this case is Meg Strickler, criminal defense attorney. Thank you for taking the time to unpack a lot in this case here on Law and Crime. I'm like thinking of where do we even begin with this? Because I mean, it's just such a wild story. I mean, how often, because I know you do a lot of international cases, have you seen anything ever that is similar to what Aimee Betro went through, or I shouldn't say went through, like what she did, because now she's been convicted?
Now, we've all seen a lot of stories. I mean, we've all seen them, but this is one that is one for the ages, because you have somebody from Wisconsin, you've got somebody who, UK, you've got guns that jam, and then you've got Armenia. I mean, you couldn't have made up a story that made this one happen. I don't understand it, and I don't understand why anybody would get this entangled in a situation that you're not personally involved in.
Right, and it all started on a dating app, and
yes.
And I think that she's in Milwaukee. She's working at one point for the Milwaukee Brewers in the ticket office there, and then you're on a dating app. You meet this guy, and then somehow one thing leads to another, and you're in a hijab outside someone's house about to pull a trigger. I mean, in some of these international cases, with the rise in dating apps, I think in over the last 10 to 15 years, I mean, how often have you seen them at least play some sort of a role maybe not to this extent, but in some of these international crimes.
Well, let me get my soapbox out, and I hate to do a public service announcement, but I see it really often, actually. It's really scary. The romance schemes, the investment schemes, the I'm stuck in jail in some random country schemes. I mean, it's actually very, very, very prevalent. So much such that in cryptocurrency as well, that California has a whole list that you can go on there and say, is this a scheme or not? I mean, I really love that the state of California has written out every single scheme that there is out there, so that if you're on one of these apps, don't go on this app or look for this scheme. And I like how the state has actually delineated every single scheme they've ever had, and they put it into a nice list. And I access it on occasion to see, hey, they have this one. So here would be a new one, because I can guarantee you this storyline is not on that list.
Well, and it's incredible too, because Mohammad Nazir was a real person. Like the
Yes.
person he's this, was not the, I'm a prince and I need your money, kind of scam. This was a real person, and he pulled her into some really bad stuff.
Well, I hate to say it, the people that are doing the schemes I was just describing are real
Yeah.
people too. So
No,
I hate
a very fair point. Yes, very
Because
much
I'm
like we're not
representing some
talking
of them.
about fake people. I'm saying in terms of a real person that you end up
I got you. I know.
trying to become
They're a real person with their real name is what you're trying to say.
That as well.
Yeah.
That they met up like a couple times before this. And then because the next layer of this is, okay, so this crime happens. She's able to get back to the United States for a period of time and then ends up in Armenia, or at least that's where she was found. And she was on the run. I mean, what does it take to go on the run for
It's
5
impossible.
years and you're out
It's
running
impossible.
Interpol and everything? Like, how was she able to do it?
First off, why would you be in anywhere in the United Kingdom trying to do any sort of crime? They're the ones that originated all the cameras everywhere. Okay, so they have cameras everywhere. The CCTV was more prevalent than any other countries that started it. They were the ones that started it. Okay, so why would you be traipsing around neighborhoods? You can't even do it outside, where my office is got TV everywhere because it's in Midtown. The point of I'm saying that is you can't either A, do crimes very easily. More importantly, B, she did that, but then she's calling and the taxi and it's her voice. So there's software today that you can do that. So she can't even avoid detection that way. And then C, she goes to a country that maybe she thought she could somehow not be extradited. I don't know, because it didn't work.
Right. And I mean, once UK police found her, and another interesting part, it was the Daily Mail,
Yes.
which ends up tracking her down. And just because I know in international cases, I mean, I'm sure you have stories for days.
I do. I'm a lot of fun at cocktail parties.
They end up finding her Instagram and they see that she's posting selfies, and they're able to kind of coordinate that with the sunsets. I mean, for the Daily Mail to do this, and there's some good people that work there, but even before Interpol, the United Kingdom, all these other agencies were able to do it. I mean, what do you make of that story as being how they were actually able to find her?
Well, I hate to say it, and I'm only going to give you my opinion. I'm not saying it's a legal opinion, is that anecdotally, I've seen the same storyline happen in my own practice where you can find a lot of data on open source. Law enforcement calls it open source. So law enforcement does that initially. They'll go out on anything that's open out there. So your Facebook, your Instagram, your whatever the heck, fill in the crack. And they can do these things that there's software that can do the voice recognition, but there's also the images. So I don't have that power, but I also simply have the power of just Googling. You know what I'm saying? So I have some power, but law enforcement has even more power. And then large journalistic places like Daily Mail can have more access to things as well. And what I'm trying to say is that anecdotally, in my own practice, my clients sometimes don't recognize how easy it is to get into the hands of law enforcement and hurt you and not help me, the defense lawyer.
Right. And it's just to think that she made it all the way to Armenia, and there's parts that we still don't know of the story of what, she gets back to Wisconsin. Part of her trial, the BBC is where I read this, is like she and Nazir like traveled the United States, and they even went to, they did all the hits, but then they went to Area 51, which I thought was just in a story that was already so bizarre. Like you just, that's like the eighth, that might not even make the top 10 in this particular case. So her trial lasted about 2 weeks. And before I actually get to the trial, I also want, we were talking about guns before we were on the air, because she gets a firearm into the United Kingdom, or one of the accomplices gets her the gun. Unfortunately, we're desensitized to the reality of gun violence in this country. In the United Kingdom, it is, to my understanding, pretty hard to get a firearm like this how does the law typically look at cases involving guns in the UK?
Well, think about how even just globally, how the United States is known to have just so many more guns per capita than any other country. So by definition, UK, Britain, whatever, they're in a place where they're very anti-gun, as is Canada, actually, our northern
Yeah.
neighbors. And so when you look at that, they have very strict laws. Now, the United States has very strict laws too. So I question when she was caught with mailing things over to the UK because of these restrictions that you just described. She then went decided to break some laws in the United States by mailing things. You can't do that. You really can't do that. And when you say I didn't mean to do it, then why'd she travel 100 miles from her house to mail it? I mean, all of this stuff is provable. And so that's why she was convicted, because nothing fit, and the jury was like, no, I'm not falling for any of this.
Well, and in her trial, it stood out to me too, is her defense was, it wasn't me. This is just all an incredible coincidence where, and you're the criminal defense attorney, I'm not, but I would have felt like you could have done the, I was a lot, this was I was abused,
Something.
where, something related to the relationship and he was really the mastermind behind
Yes.
it, something along that lines, where to just say it wasn't me and it's a terrible coincidence where it's my DNA in a glove that you find in a car, that just doesn't seem to be a smart way to go about it.
No, I mean, I think if you're going to use it wasn't me, you would then have to have where places to say, look, I was all the way over here. I was in Alabama, or I was in,
Right.
Turkey. I don't care. Just pick a place. And so that'd be an alibi, somewhere else. And she didn't even pretend to do that, but she can't have because your phone tells you where you are. So my guess is they had data to say you were there. So that was just not what I would call a particularly good thing to have said in a trial, because you have to have corroborating evidence for it to have any kind of merit, or it will be discarded by jurors. It's just how it works.
It took them about 21 hours to reach the verdict, convicting her of the charges that she was that she's facing related to this. Just in your work with international trials, what are some of the big differences between how things typically go in a courtroom in the U.S. to what would happen in a case like this in the U.K.?
Well, interestingly, over there, they have the solicitors and then they also have barristers. That's a different concept. And then also they do both sides. So if I was an attorney over there, which I am not, I would represent the prosecution, the Crown Prosecution Services, but I also would represent the defense in the same week, so to speak. In other words, I do both sides. I hope I'm making that clear. So that's a
Sure.
very stark difference. And I find that that might actually be an interesting thing to employ here, because then I would have more, I think, understanding, compassion, I don't know what other words you want to come up with, for the other side, and vice versa. The government would have some understanding of what we do on the daily.
And based on the two other men involved in this, Mohammad Nazir and then his father, Mohammed Aslam, Nazir gets 32 years, I think it was. The dad gets a decade in prison. I'm not going to have you because, I mean, sometimes, as far as like how many years she's going to get, we know it's going to be a good amount of time. Could the U.S. government get involved in any part where you have a U.S. citizen? Clearly, the U.K. is an ally and a close friend of the U.S., but as far as the embassy or anything involved, or is this a, I mean, look, she did this crime in the UK and she's going to have to deal with the UK criminal justice system.
Generally, that's how it works. Now, if, and I'm going to go off a little bit, but if she was charged and convicted of something that was politically motivated, then there's some things that we can get involved in our country and say, hey, that's not fair. Or if the laws were very, very starkly different. So for example, I'm making this up, that if murder was a charge there, that they would chop people's hands off. I'm just being facetious here. Then we
Sure.
would say, hey, that's not a charge that we do, therefore we want her back and you can't charge her over there. I'm giving you some basic examples of when there's discrepancies, okay? But what she's charged with are very similar crimes to what we have in the US. Now, with whether or not she needs to spend prison time over there or prison time in the US, generally, since it's a ally like you just described, we don't get involved. But if there were some health issues, something like that, maybe there would be some reason to compassionately allow her to serve her time over here.
And then just before we go, I know I kind of in the beginning just asked for your reaction to this story, and I'm still kind of coming to grips with it. Is there anything you've ever, I mean, how often, I mean, typically the typical case of the American getting in trouble overseas, What do you
drugs.
typically see there compared to a woman from, I mean, we found her LinkedIn, and in 2019, looking for a job, she said I'd be willing to relocate to the UK. And then fast forward now, she was not very good at it, but trying to be an assassin in the United Kingdom. I mean, how does this compare to that typical, what is the typical American in trouble in the United Kingdom case that you deal with?
Typically, it's somebody doing something basic, drinking and driving, drugs. You can be out clubbing and get caught with some drugs that are, very strong charges against you by accident, those kinds of storylines. Or you could get sex trafficked and then get caught within that kind of arena doing things you shouldn't have been doing. There's lots of storylines like that. Those are the normal ones you hear. Again, driving under the influence, getting some sort of accident, fighting. All these like normal things that we can get in trouble with here are normal things that we can get in trouble with anywhere, across the globe. Those are your general ones. This one is like one of those extreme ones. How often are any of us charged with murder or rape or pillaging? That's what this is. Like you just said, an assassin. Rises to a very rare level.
Yeah, it certainly is, and a bizarre case in a lot of ways. I mean, fortunately, no one was hurt, which I think is an important part of this.
Lucky.
Yeah, Meg
Lucky.
Strickler. Yeah, I mean, the gun jamming. I mean, you just think of that moment
Fate.
for that individual is absolute, yeah, like fate
Just
for it to
lucky.
happen in that moment. And then she came back 5 hours later.
3 more shots.
And then
Crazy.
fired 3,
Yes.
so it's a story with a lot of layers. Meg Strickler, criminal defense attorney. Hey, thanks for helping us break this one down. We appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.
According to the BBC, Aimee Betro will learn her sentence on August 21st. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.